Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of the QCast. This is the weekend edition. And not a day goes by that there are more revelations coming from all different areas of science, technology, history, genetic manipulation, genetic alteration. Everything that we used to hear about in science fiction in the future is now. So what I'm trying to do on this QCast is kind of give you an overview of where we're at. Now, one of the very first books that I wrote almost, 20 years ago is called Aliens and Fallen Angels. And let me move my hand up here. Offspring of the Gods, the Sexual Corruption of the Human Race. Now, I used to joke on talk radio, and by the way, this book takes into every, I would say, facet from the UFO experience and some of the smartest and some of the most well-spoken, most prolific writers on the subject of UFOs. I quote a lot of them. But even though this was written, I think at least, I think it was minimum 17 years ago, and the subject matter now are today's headlines. It used to be you were a conspiracy theorist or one of those UFO nuts, all of the different, terms that people would use to try and dismiss any information you might have. The fact that still stands in direct opposition to all of the complaints against it is, why did Hollywood focus so intently on the UFO phenomenon, the alien phenomenon, the planet Mars, and all of the recent, if you will, in the last 7 years, everything was about the control or a secret group of aliens and or a secret government that had plans for the planet. Now, one of the things that is problematic is that you cannot dismiss everybody as being crazy. You can't dismiss airline pilots, and you can't dismiss, this broadcast isn't about UFOs. That's a given. But what this broadcast is about is the greatest deception that's going to soon take place in the history of mankind. Since about 1947, obviously you can go back to so many writings from famous authors, obviously George Orwell. You can go back to Huxley. You can go back to just about everybody, Mary Shelley, Frankenstein. You can go back to those who have written about the days when we would walk amongst the stars. But one of the things that's really critical that you understand and I understand is that the whole realm of human sexuality seems to be, pun intended, the breeding grounds for aliens. I've stated on my talk radio program over the years, over the couple decades, that isn't it fascinating that you have this supposedly advanced race of mind-boggling technology, but they have to come to Earth for a good time? Or as, I think even there was a science fiction show called Earth Women Are Easy. And what is problematic in dealing with this whole subject matter, and by the way, I'm as serious as you can be, is the fact that the aliens are so fascinated with human reproduction, especially abductions, especially extraction of the female egg, the overwhelming curiosity with the human anatomy. Now, if this were just in this century, I would say, well, boy, that's bizarre. But when you get back to the myths and the legends, as I've stated before, of Atlantis, Hyperborea, Ultima Thule, every single legend that I've been able to track, and after 40 years of doing it, I can honestly say this, that you can't escape the sky people. You can't escape the idea that the gods came to Earth, mated with Earth women, and produced a hybrid race of beings that far surpassed the contemporary race of beings that they bred with at the time they bred with them. And what becomes even more pronounced is that now genetic engineering and genetic alteration using CRISPR technology, using gene splicing, using stem cells as basically your basis for building whatever you want, the hybridization, the cross species transgenic movement, growing quote-unquote human organs in animals such as pigs or other animals. Even today, the woolly mammoth is going to be brought back. But I want you to know that if you go to some of the smartest people in the world, if you go to Dr. Hermann Oberth, who was basically one of the guys in the Nazi genius level scientist and scientific development, along with Dr. Werner von Braun, you come up with amazing quotes. And I want to share some quotes with you today, because what I'm telling you is simply this. You're going to see and hear and experience technology you've never even imagined exists on this planet. You're going to be razzled and dazzled. You're going to be presented with strange signs and wonders in the sky. You're going to see three-dimensional holographic images take physicality. You're going to see demons, and I'm talking literal evil spirits manifesting along with monsters. Because again, it is the ultimate goal of genetic engineering to do away with the human race. It should be it should be very perplexing. It should be troubling, but most people just do what they do whenever confronted with truth. Number one, deny it. Call a friend on their iPhone. Get on the social media sites. Talk about how miserable they are, or then basically talk about this, that, or the other thing, but at all costs avoid reality. I'm on record as saying that the world of virtual reality was designed to absolutely keep the lemmings entertained so that they would never even question what is presented to them ultimately as ultimate truth, but that will be, in actuality, ultimate deception. Now, Dr. Hermann Oberth, who pioneered rocket design for the German Reich, the Third Reich during World War II, and later advanced rocket technology for the American planned space launches, cryptically stated, "We cannot take credit for our record advancement in certain scientific fields alone. We have been helped." When asked by whom, he replied, "The people of other worlds." I wish he would have added, too, the entities from other dimensions. More famous quotes, and this is phenomenal to me, and this is really important. Michio Kaku, author of Theoretical Physics at, University of New York. "In my mind, there's no question that they're out there. My career is well established. My textbooks are required reading in all the major capitals of planet Earth. If you want to become a physicist to learn about the unified field theory, read my books. Therefore, I'm in a position to say, yes, most likely they're out there, perhaps even visited, perhaps on our moon." When you look at Dr. J. Allen Hynek, and I quote most of these people in my books, Aliens and Fallen Angels. I don't quote Kaku, but I do quote Dr. Allen Hynek and different people, Einstein, etc. And here's what Dr. Allen Hynek said. And they had a blue book, okay? That was the Air Force's supposedly open source for people to see what the Air Force knew about flying saucers, aliens, etc. When the long-awaited solution to the UFO problem comes, I believe that it will prove to be not merely the next small step in the march of science, but a mighty and totally unexpected quantum leap. Interesting. We had a job to do, whether right or wrong, to keep the public from getting excited. I would say this, and I don't know how to say it in Latin, maybe I should have looked it up, but never tell the public the truth, okay? Never tell the public the truth. You can see that in the headlines of the current President Trump fighting with the deep state, the dark state, and I stand on the record of what I said years ago, that I believe that the hidden government, the hidden secret world control powers were going to be made openly known to the people of the world, because as we are literally teeter-tottering and bordering on World War III, because the globalists, the industrialists, the illuminists, they need it, they want it, and they will get it. As the population now is at least 50-50, and as of today on the front of Matt Drudge, we're at 55% Trump approval rating. But the very nature of the leaks that have taken place are a violation of U.S. law, but no one seems to care about that. So when you think that ultimately we're going to get the truth of the UFOs, we'll get it, but it'll be on their terms. And this is what's interesting. Given the millions and billions of Earth, as again Carl Sagan used to say, billions and billions, okay? This is Albert Einstein. The billions of Earth-like planets, life elsewhere in the universe without a doubt does exist. In the vastness of the universe, we're not alone. Well, again, because I have a biblical filter, we've never been alone. When Paul's talking, the Apostle Paul in the book of Ephesians is talking about spiritual warfare, he's talking about the powers of the heavenlies, okay? He's talking about principalities and powers and spiritual wickedness in heavenly places. In other words, beyond what we see. What is important that everybody totally grasps is this: the entire United States space program came into being under the guidance of former Nazis. Let me give you another quote by Oberth, okay? And this is really one that I find interesting. "It is my thesis that flying saucers are real and that they are spaceships from another solar system. There is no doubt in my mind that these objects are interplanetary craft of some sort. I and my colleagues are confident that they do not originate in our solar system." How about if he would have added the simple statement, "They do not originate in our dimension"? Think about this. I call the alien phenomenon, I think I used to call them, and shorten the abbreviation, as most of you know, I like my own words when I can't find one that does a better job. I called them transmorphic demonic entities, simply meaning those that are able to change shape and form, and that their origin is very evil, and they are entities. They are not personalities as you and I know them, although they do develop personalities. Funny thing, I was talking to a lady in my store this morning, and she was quoting some of the people that she's talked to over the years, and a very, very well-connected woman in the area of real estate, and came through town, talked to me a little bit, pick it up, by the way, my new book, Tears, An Ocean of Emotion. I'm really choosing my words carefully. You'll notice I do that a lot because unless I give a slip of the tongue that would put anybody in trouble, I have to do that. I will do that. But she said, one of the most powerful people that she's ever talked to, or the revelations given to her, was simply the fact that they walk amongst us. If you remember Roddy Piper, the movie They, and if you had these sunglasses, you could see the aliens. That's exactly what she's talking about. Multiple times in different briefings from people that would listen to me on talk radio or see a video or something, I'd get contacted from them. By the way, one of the secrets to be able to determine if your research is real or not is to always hold back stuff so that you make sure that you're not getting your own information coming back to you. I can't tell you how many times the radio show Hawk has gotten that. I've gotten that. Others have gotten their own stuff repeated back to us. And then when you can prove to them that it's you're the source of the information, some of them get really upset. The purpose of today's broadcast is to share with you the different events that are taking place and to show you that there is a deep state, I would even say an otherworld control factor. It's my contention, and I'll say it plain and simple, and always for those of you who are believers in the Bible, take it to the Lord in prayer. If Satan himself can masquerade as an enemy of light, what can these entities do by taking on the persona of a human being, and what power do they possess? It's interesting, in Dubai, in the last week or so, I believe, they've built the temple, the Arch of Baal. Some people pronounce it Baal. And by the way, Cannibal, again, the priest of Baal from the land of Canaan. And it showed all the world's rich and famous. And if you begin to understand WikiLeaks and the references to Moloch, by the way, that's who the Canaanites sacrificed their children to. They burnt them in the arms of the statue of Moloch, or they basically slit their throats. I'm talking little babies, and took the blood, and especially in the Philistines, and prior to the Philistines, they would, the Canaanites and Philistines would pour out a blood sacrifice on the anchor ropes. They've even found Canaanites on the East Coast, and a lot of different indicators. By the way, I want to recommend 3 books to you by a Harvard linguist, ethnographer, who's no longer alive. His name is Barry Fell, F-E-L-L. He wrote 3 books, and it may not have been in this order, but Saga America, Bronze Age America, and America BC. Okay? America BC, Bronze Age America, and Saga America. One of the most well-researched, and these things were out, I think, in the late 50s, early 60s. And I'd recommend those to you because, again, one of the things that those of us who do our homework are always challenged with are people that use these words. Well, I don't think, or I don't believe, or I can't believe, or I don't want to believe, or I choose not to believe. It just doesn't feel right. It just doesn't sound right. I'll interpret them. I'll interpret all those statements. You're scared to death, and you will not allow yourself to come to the historic conclusion, to the headlines of today, and to the ramifications. Look, most people can't even identify cause, let alone begin to deal with the effect. The advanced technology of the ancients, and again, you can argue all you want, but the Back to the Future statement that was obviously a series of films starring Michael J. Fox and the assortment of different actors and actresses with that association of what I think it was 3 of them. The Back to the Future concept is what, and this is told to me by Special Operations Active Duty Generals, simply this. Here's the exact wording. It's about ancient technology, ancient weapons, and controlling ancient DNA so that our enemies don't get it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to get it. And that's why I wrote the book, Aliens and Fallen Angels, Offspring of the Gods, A Sexual Corruption of the Human Race. This was my first attempt. And by the way, this book has gone around the world numerous times. And it's one of the books I think that is the easiest way for those of you who know, especially as believers, how to introduce people to the whole concept of fallen angels. And again, because it's necessary to do this, because you'll invariably see comments, on YouTube or whatever. Jesus made the statement to the Pharisees that in heaven, people are neither given or taken in marriage, but are as the angels in heaven. But the angels that fell from heaven, meaning 1/3 of the angels, they basically saw that the daughters of earth were fair, Genesis 6:4, and came unto them. Now, not all the angels, I don't know how many fallen angels there are, I've said this before, but there were at least 200 of them that committed the sex sin before the flood of Noah, and then after the flood of Noah. Now, prior to the flood of Noah, in the book of Enoch, which is in the pseudepigrapha, which are in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and interestingly enough, Dead Sea Scrolls are back in the news because I think the 12th cave of Qumran has been found, the Qumran Scrolls, okay? And the fascinating thing to me is that people will talk about the book of Enoch, but they'll never mention the book of Giants. You can go on my website, Genesis6giants.com, GENESIS, the number 6giants.com, and you can click up on the nav bar, ancient manuscripts, and or ancient texts, I think it says. Most people don't know that, but that's probably, if you want to know what I'd like to do, is to get that website. By the way, I keep up with posting links on it and stuff, but at some point it needs a total redesign. And again, I just don't have time right now. So where we're at in the whole time period as I see it, it doesn't matter who you quote. People will only believe what they see. Most people won't do their homework. And because we've been preconditioned by science fiction films, by obviously all of the science fiction books, the novels, everything out there, we're coming into a time period where we're going to be confronted with dimensions of spirituality and reality in the physical world that we simply are not going to be able to cope with unless you're, how do I say this, being gently informed ahead of time. It's my goal to gently inform you ahead of time. Because again, when I hear, crazy stuff like, and for the record, Hebrew slaves did not build the Great Pyramids. For the record, there is flood debris on both the Sphinx and all of the different pyramids around the world that indicates 2 floods. Well, if people have a hard time with the global flood, one, they're certainly going to not have an easy time with the pre-flood of Jeremiah chapter 4. Because the rebellion amongst the angels before mankind was even created, they got into the area where their knowledge was their undoing. Again, I would encourage you to basically consider taking the time to read up on this, because you're going to encounter stranger and stranger aerial phenomenon. I was also told by an advanced aeronautical engineer who basically was in the world of black physics. Black physics defined is the area that you are inaugurated into when you basically go into certain initiation rites, and when the gatekeepers, the smartest guys in the world, or as I would believe, the fallen angels that control the smartest guys in the world, teach you what you need to know in a compartmentalized way in order to get the desired result. It's almost like this. God gave certain limits to the spiritual warfare, especially the devil and his fallen angels. But when men willingly cooperate and willingly want to go to war with God, because they're just basically saying, look, we want to live our own lives. We don't even care about you, God. And to put that into perspective, the Muslim terrorists are now basically conquering the world until a force greater than them, and in my estimation, that will be the power of God by brave Christians challenging them. The whole thing with Mike Flynn, let me say something about General Michael Flynn. I don't know him personally, but I know of his career. I've kind of watched it off and on. Remember when he was fired by Obama, and Michael Savage, by the way, go on, Dr. Michael Savage, he nailed it today, but the reason it was critical to take down Michael Flynn was because of his incredible grasp of what I would call real world, behind the scenes machinations of who is sleeping with who, probably literally, who is sleeping with who, or whom is doing what to whom. And they had to cut off his access to the field that he's very proficient in. In other words, if you wanted to know who the smartest guy is on what's going on behind the scenes, it was General Michael Flynn. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this was one of the most concerted efforts ever undertaken to take down an exemplary man of the military. Now, look, he's probably got issues too. We all got issues. But the point is that the one thing he did was speak the truth. Do you remember that during the entity, and when I say the entity, I'm talking about that individual who I will not even put into a human term, basically fired Michael Flynn, but also would never allow the words Islamic terrorism to be in the same sentence. I put up an amazing story today on my website, and it was quoting, and forgive me, I put up probably 50 today, but one of them was quoting a very incredible thinking Muslim who said, if the shoes were on the other foot, in other words, the Christians were doing to the Muslims what the Muslims are doing to the Christians, would there be this outroar? You see, because again, let me tell you about the basis of pattern recognition as I've learned it. If you're looking at a piece of convoluted foam, if you focus on just one of the valleys, even at any mountain range, if you focus on just an individual valley or an individual point, even on a map, you don't get the general layout. That's why you have to move in from Google Earth, coming in, until you get to the point that you've arrived at your most curious point of interest. What I'm trying to get, and maybe this is an undertaking that is asking too much, but I don't mean of me. But what I'm trying to do is everybody that you listen to on YouTube that has, quote, credibility and more credibility than they have detractors, it's a three-dimensional puzzle. Most people can only look at a puzzle as a border and the pieces that fit together, a jigsaw puzzle. But imagine that puzzle is a almost infinitely tiered, matrix, and that all of these different events are going on all over the matrix, all over the levels, and in multiple dimensions. That's about the easiest way I know how to explain it. But yet, when you look at the matrix, you start to get the big picture. There's a time now when heaven and earth will converge. There's a time now where the statement, as above, so below. Well, I want to add to that, as below, so above. As underneath the water, so above on the land. And again, those of you who listen to me on talk radio when I'm a guest on Hagman and Hagman, or I'm a guest on whoever show, Dave Hodges or Alex Jones, rarely, but when I am on there, the point that I'm trying to get people to see is there's an unseen hand. You've got to notice, you've got to be even way more aware due to the talk radio's efforts at educating you beyond anything you've ever known, beyond anything you ever expected or anything you could have grasped. There are people watching this broadcast now, and I know I get their emails, 400, 500 over a 24-hour period, and they're saying, I used to think you were full of you-know-what, or some of them even apologize. The point is that they get it now. They're starting to get it. And what has happened over the years is that the Rosetta Stone of lines, and go look up the Rosetta Stone, Rosetta. It was a stone that was found during Napoleon's conquest of Egypt by a man named Champollion, I guess. Champollin, Champollion. I may be pronouncing it wrong. Obviously, I do that quite often. But the Rosetta Stone was the way that scholars were able to determine how to read hieroglyphics in 2 other languages. And without the Rosetta Stone, they may have arrived at it, but they wouldn't have arrived at it to the degree that they're arriving at it now and have arrived at it. Hieroglyphics are pretty well known, but when you come into what I call pteroglyphs. Pteroglyphs are like in the plains, the altiplano of Peru, Bolivia, Chile, all over the different parts of the world. There are different geoglyphs, pteroglyphs, and even crop circles could technically be called a pteroglyph. Now, there are crop circles that are made by, human beings. Obviously, there are some very, very lovely designed ones, but they're the ones that are out of time. And then there are the ones that are found that are, 200 and 300 years old, and then there are the ones that are 2,000 and 3,000 years old. The spiral that is seen throughout the desert Southwest, that our film teams encountered in Sardinia, in Malta, in Rome, in Peru, in Chile, at Tiwanaku, at Pumapunku, at the different places, the desert Southwest, whether they're on a wall, spirals, whether they're on the ground, whether they're in the air. And again, I would like everybody to just do a search for the Norway spiral. Look who was there when that happened. And that was Obama. So we're at a point now where I'm trying to give you a heads up on what's going to happen. Because at some point you're going to hear that, oh no, we found something new in the heavens. What could this be? We picked up an intelligent life signal. Our supercomputers have broadcasted. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, you won't believe this. You won't believe this. And you'll see advanced mathematics that you didn't know existed, mathematicians. You'll hear of physics and formulas in physics from physics that you didn't even know. You'll hear the geneticists screaming, why, this is the fountain of youth. This is the Methuselah gene. This is amazing. Mankind has just been presented with its creators. By the way, those guys have to come in something that's already been made. They don't speak into existence like the real God in Latin, meaning I think it's ex nihilo, N-I-H-L-O, that means out of nothing. Only the God can call out of nothing something. These guys have to take something and build something, and everything that they will fake, you will have already been pre-programmed to it. Now, only by the grace of God, in my opinion, will people be able to see it for what it is. But when 90% of the people believe a lie, let's say it's even 95% or 97% of the people believe a lie, it does not bode well for the 3% that are saying it's not true, not true, not true. They will say, and I'm sorry, but this is what they will say, damn them and destroy them. Because as long as there's one witness, one voice challenging the official narrative, no matter how much Bravo Sierra is associated with that narrative, they've got to be silenced at all costs. See, because ladies and gentlemen, the truth, even as the truth that's being brought out in this presidential race, isn't it amazing that the mainstream vomit brokers, those hideous creatures of darkness that believe their opinion and their agenda somehow replaces, and maybe they've been told this, and maybe it's true, but the ability for anybody who's rational, historically, I would say, non-ignorant, that you just simply wouldn't believe it. Those people that are the mainstream vomit brokers, believe it or not, are the ones that have affected every aspect of your life from the time of your birth. Because remember, there's never the truth. There's only the agenda. I think it was Swinton at the turn of the century, Swinton, who made the statement, before I think the New York Press Club or some press club, claiming that not one of us dare tell the truth. This is what sticks out to me. For at best, we are all prostitutes. We are rich men's vassals, okay? So when you come up with the word techno-serfdom, when you come up with the word technecadence, that's another word I came up with. It's to say the technological decadence that will be produced where human life you will be ultimately relegated to a very brief, if you will, flash in the pan or a scatter pattern from an electron beam gun, i.e. CERN, and you will be denigrated and denigrated and denigrated. You'll be taken apart molecule by molecule, and then you'll be shown, if you will, the classic interpretation that we were seeded on this planet by aliens who, quote unquote, I forget who it said, is that they find it hard that with the magnificence of this planet, that somebody, number one, design implies a designer, created such a masterpiece and then just dumped cosmic garbage on it. You're hearing more about Mars every day. I said that too, and people are sending me emails saying, how'd you know? How'd you know? Because it's going to be obvious very soon that we are going to make discoveries. And those discoveries are going to be linked to ancient civilizations. And those ancient civilizations will have recorded in something like the Dropa discs, most likely crystals, just like Superman 1. You're going to see the equivalent of those science fiction movies revelations come into being. I would remind everybody that until advanced crystal structures were able to be reproduced, and the light amplification of stimulated emission of radiation or the laser, that lasers now carry a voluminous amount of information. Lasers are the newest weapon system. Lasers are composed of coherent light. Well, when you talk about laser-like thought, you're talking about something that between the speaker and the hearer of the words, it is so clearly defined that there is no misconstruing, misunderstanding, and no ability to basically, a laser always has a point of impact or a reference point or a target, okay? So when someone is being targeted with laser-like precision, especially when it comes to the truth, and that's, I believe, the realm that God works in, is that to say you don't want to see it or you don't want to hear it probably is more honest than saying, I don't see it and I don't hear it. The people that I deal with almost day in and day out, the ones that know what's going on, they get it. The ones that don't want to know what's going on, not only do they not want to get it, they want to make sure everyone around them doesn't get it. Here's something... Even J. Edgar Hoover, FBI, we must insist upon full access to disks recovered. For instance, the LA case, the Army grabbed and it would not let us have for its cursory examination. In other words, the military wasn't sharing with the Bureau. General Nathan Twining, Chairman, Joint Chiefs of Staff, 55 through 58, 1955 through 58. The UFO phenomenon being reported is something real and not visionary or fictitious. The idea that everything is known by every member of the government is completely false. You've heard the need to know basis. Well, I'm telling you today that it's my prayer that all of the restraints, in other words, in the military, I've dealt with so many of those guys, never been in the military, but they always use this statement. Well, that's above my pay grade. Well, my answer to that statement has always been and will always be, then let me talk to the guy who basically can't say that. And by the grace of God and through, I think, the calling that God has given me, I mean, those men have sought me out. I can't possibly seek out someone I do not know exists. How do I know that they're telling me the truth? Well, guess what? When you start writing about stuff like simply this, when I made the statement that before God allows Russia and China to destroy the United States, 7 years ago, whatever, and that's a real statement of mine. And by the way, I will own my words and I will stand by them. People couldn't understand it because there was no issues with Russia. There were no issues with China. And they said, he stopped a floor short of his elevator destination. Little did they know, I don't take elevators. I walk the steps and I get to the top. And by walking the steps and getting to the top, I don't have to be subjected to interruptions in the elevator, stalling or whatever may go on. That's just the principle that I like. We're going to see the true revelation of just how serious Russia and China are. We're going to see whether China adopts the Bitcoin or another digital currency incorporating Bitcoin. But again, they can do the same thing with their digital currency that they could do with physically backing money with gold, the yuan. Again, that puts it in the paper realm or it puts it even into a digital realm. But if they take away all paper money and look at the push now globally, isn't it amazing that all the guys that want no cash are all the ones that are tied into the most powerful elite? Again, I'll give you Rothschild's statement. Give me the control of a nation's currency or money, and I care not who writes its laws. It took it one step further. They who have control of the nation's currency not only, basically control everything, but they control you. The starvation that's taking place in Africa is by design. The Pacific Ocean dying. I remember when I said that, and I actually calculated the square miles of the Pacific Ocean. And the person that said, I don't believe that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, how much more has to die in the ocean before everything dies in the ocean? And I understand sea currents, and I understand, but when you've got plankton, and I went through the whole list, when you got everything low on the food chain dying, what happens to that at the top of the food chain? Guess what? I used to think that's humans, and I don't anymore. It's what's coming, And one of the questions I get asked, and I even get people to argue with me because I went and saw, Hollywood's BFG, Big Friendly Giant. I said, well, maybe that's in someone's imagination, but I don't see that. By the way, the word ogre, from which we get the word inaugurate, look it up. It was a flesh-eating cannibal giant, okay? Ogre. In different mythologies of the world and different areas of the world, the ogre, primarily the Scandinavian and Germanic, that was a man-eating giant. So what does the word inaugurate mean? Well, I'll let you put two and two together. Here's one that General Douglas MacArthur stated, and this is an astonishing statement. The next war will be an interplanetary war. The nations of the earth must someday make a common front attack against people from other planets. The politics of the future will be cosmic or interplanetary. And I maintain, he said that, by the way, in 1955, I maintain that's the war going on right now. For the record, we have secret space fleets. For the record, we have been able to jump space. For some of you that don't believe that, and the first thing the military did, and the industrial complex, and the men in black, when Ben Rich, who was the head of basically Lockheed Skunk Works, he's called the father of stealth technology, he made this statement, and he's a really, how do I say this? There are people that attack this, and you never heard it. I know someone that was actually in his vicinity when this was said, okay? And I won't go into any more detail. We already have the means to travel among the stars, but these technologies are locked up in black projects, and it would take an act of God to ever get them out to benefit humanity. Anything you can imagine, we already know how to do. Pretty interesting. We now have the technology to take ET home. No, it won't take someone's lifetime to do it. There's an error in what we know and what is. We now have the capability to travel to the stars. First, you have to understand that we will not be able to travel to the stars using chemical propulsion. Second, we have to devise a new propulsion technology that we have to do, and where Einstein was wrong. Listen to this. When Rich was asked how UFO propulsion worked, he said, "Let me ask you this, how does ESP work?" And he said, "All points in time and space are connected." That's the word space-time continuum. The best way, if those of you are familiar with Star Trek, to get a grasp on this, and the Star Trek series on television was a holodeck, okay? Where in essence it was like a green screen with a checkerboard with lights all connected. And people asked him, "What do you know?" As a head of Skunkworks, looked it up, Ben Rich, okay? He basically said that there's two kinds of technology, ours and theirs. And let me read this to you. There are two types of UFOs, the ones we build and the ones they build. We learned from both crash retrievals and hand-me-downs. The government knew and until 1969 took an active hand in the administration of that information. Nearly all biomorphic, here we go, remember I use the term transmorphic demonic entities, aerospace designs were inspired by the Roswell spacecraft. From Kelly's SR-71 to today's drones, UCAVs, and aerospace craft. Now, here's what he said. Up until a certain point, he said it was his opinion that the public should not be told about UFOs and that they're extraterrestrials. He believed the public couldn't handle the truth. Later in his life, he realized that if the public wasn't told the truth, that those who wanted to control the world would use that technology against the people of the world. Again, ladies and gentlemen, even Harry S. Truman, President Truman, he claimed, "I can assure you that flying saucers, given that they exist, are not conducted or constructed by any power on Earth." I'm trying to think which is the next really good one. Well, I'll just leave it there because I can go on and on and on, obviously. So in my book, Aliens and Fallen Angels, I want to read this to you because most people really don't get the sexual connection. By the way, this is not going to be an intergalactic sex talk, okay? The sexual assault on humanity was basically the interjecting of alien, quote, fallen angel DNA. People said, well, how can fallen angels, because, and I make the distinction, fallen angels can size their anatomy appropriately to be able to have sex with earth women, okay? Again, they can look like humans. Evidently, they can take on the plumbing necessary to reproduce children. And if you were a secret government organization, and if you wanted to identify everybody that had alien DNA, would you not begin to look in a way that everyone would willingly want to know where their ancestry came from? Again, ladies and gentlemen, I couldn't know this stuff unless people told me. And if they have enough stars, I call them constellation generals. In order to be a constellation general in my mind, they have to have 3 stars and above. The Sexual Assault, Chapter 1, Aliens and Fallen Angels, the Sexual Corruption of the Human Race. When Giants Walk the Earth. The Clues and Myths. Which angels fell? Before the beginning, I go into Genesis 1:1 and 1:2, the pre-Adamic realm. Satan's fall, cosmic warfare. Preparing for invasion. Portraying the old as new. Satan's sixth column. We come in peace, Revelation. And I tried to divide this book up, and I've been getting so many people saying, thank you for writing this. it's not just, it's not the latest thing I ever wrote, but what's important is the way it's all laid out. I want to read this from the book of Enoch, and then I want to get you to understand there's a reason why the Dead Sea Scrolls, the 12th cave, have evidently been found. I can assure you, anything that is of eternal consequence that would shine light on the Illuminati, the globalists, the Satanists, and the aliens in drag, okay? Or let's just say this, the fallen angels lowering themselves to become humanoids or in human form. By the way, they don't possess humans. They take on the form. They take on the exoform of humans. Here's what the Book of Enoch elaborates on, and this is from the Charlesworth edition. And the women became pregnant and gave birth to great giants whose heights were 300 cubits. These giants consumed the produce of all the people until the people detested feeding them. So then the giants turned against the people in order to eat them. And they began to sin against birds, wild beasts, reptiles, and fish, and their flesh was devoured, the one by the other, and they drank blood. In other words, when the giants ate up everything they could, everything in their path, then they start eating each other. That's where the word cannibal comes from. And ladies and gentlemen, that's why you've got cannibalism in your headlines today. My good friend Romy, my Romy Romy Zaret, she doesn't mind I use her last name, was given one of the most amazing dream visions. And some of you will remember this. I think, actually, forgive me, it wasn't a dream, it was open vision, that she saw beautiful angels coming down, and the whole world was looking up at the sky, and she was taken kind of above them and to the side of them so she could see what was going on. They were playing beautiful music, and they were basically, the people were all in awe. The music was affecting their ability to think, and they were basically, if you will, dancing to the tune and prancing to the tune of the Pied Piper. What looked like bright angels started to change their visage, and their visage changed to black, and I'm talking now dark angels, if you will, shadow creatures. And the people that had followed them behind the building were all being basically devoured whole. Now, you can say, I don't believe that. I don't believe that. But what I'm telling you is the Book of Enoch teaches us specifically that. The idea that we're watching right now, the Book of Enoch, the Book of Giants, and again, you go on my website, Genesis6Giants.com. If this kind of stuff really likes you. Now, why is this important? What does this even have to do with biblical Christianity? Why would I spend so much time on this when people say, why aren't you giving more altar calls? Well, right now I'm calling everybody to the altar of seeking the truth. And even Jesus said, when you seek him with all your heart, you'll find him. I understand there are people with more degrees than thermometers. I understand there are genius guys that's IQs can't even be, charted, detected. I understand the realm of fallen angels that are in society, the fallen angels that walk among us. I understand that. And so you cannot just totally grasp this stuff in a human / evolutionary mindset, because then you cannot explain where these things came. And obviously you can have variation within a species, but when you get truly the transgenic monsters of ancient myth, ancient legend, and that's why my book, True Legends, that's why our DVD series, True Legends, the series, is what we're showing you, ladies and gentlemen, is not only do we go where the legends originated, but we're digging, pun intended, deeper, but we're in a different realm, okay? There may be archaeologists, but I would call us terra, okay, let me come up with something very, hopefully more definitive, okay? Truth diggers, okay? You've heard of gold diggers? Well, we're truth diggers, and we go into every area that opens up to us to go and investigate. It will become as a very big surprise when the real announcements come from CERN. That's why you, who understand the gifts of the Spirit will need discerning of spirits, discernment. And that's why if you understand the basis and the root of evil, once you understand the root of evil, Genesis 6, Numbers 13:33, and throughout the entire Old Testament, when you ran into Nimrod began to become a Gibborim, mighty man. When you talk about the Greek heroes, it's talking about giants. It's talking about the Olympians. It's talking about the Titans. It's talking about different realms and different levels of creation that basically defy the evolutionary model of a protozoan bumping into a ringworm or something and producing the politicians we now have in Washington. The only thing I can say is this. The political piranhas in the Potomac of self-indulgence, and I think I said that 15 years ago, political piranhas in the Potomac of self-indulgence, anything that interrupts that self-indulgence, anything that rains on their, smiley little faces as they totally sell out your children, my children, our grandchildren, when there is nothing left for them to devour, they will devour themselves. That day is coming too. There's a purge going on, and I will say this one last time in closing. Years ago, before the Chinese and the Russians even began to flex their muscles militarily, the idea was so far off most people's radar that God would literally allow the fulfillment of the destruction of Mystery Babylon. I believe that's our country. We didn't repent of our pharmakia, some people pronounce it pharmakia, from which we get the term pharmaceuticals. We didn't, renounce all the unjust gain. We are a nation of blood, both internally and externally. And now if you wonder where all the cannibalism is leading to, and the abortionalism is going to lead to, it's going to lead to lunch. And my goal is as many as I can, I want to spare to get out of the machine that is soon going to be devouring on an unimaginable level. The disconnect between people and the disconnect between food, transportation, and the growing seasons and food processing and everything else going on. And by the way, at the end of the day, you can bet your bottom line that the Frankenfood manufacturers will still be making whatever they're making. They'll have a slick blonde and an even slicker. Now they'll probably have, Ken and Barbies who are reversing their roles. Ken's really Barbie. Barbie's really been Ken all along. But hey, guess what? Can't we all get along? I'm waiting for the presentation of the first human-animal hybrids, not a mouse with an ear on it. Hey, I once said when somebody said, "Did you see that mouse with a human ear?" And I said, yeah, God's trying to teach you something. A mouse has a bigger ear to hear the truth than you do. Well, I don't know that that's exactly the truth, but what I am saying is this, that your hearts will fail, my heart will fail, looking after those things coming up on the earth. And there comes a point, ladies and gentlemen, where those things coming up on the earth, let's see if I can do this right, I'll get this, up on the earth and coming down from heaven, we're going to be sandwiched between literally the powers of darkness and the powers of hell rising up to try and squish us out of existence. And it just isn't going to happen. I'd encourage everyone to quote Psalm 91 every day. I would quote, if you want to know what the terror that came by night is, it's beyond this broadcast to let you know. I would encourage you to get my book, Little Creatures. These books I write are not for children. Somebody said, is your Little Creatures book a bedtime primer and help you go to sleep? I said, unfortunately, it's terrifyingly authentic, and that's the last thing I would read, and I would never read it to a child. Obviously, you can sanitize it, but do not put this stuff out unless your children are capable and spiritually mature enough. Now, saying that, I've got 12-year-olds that have read my Genesis 6 Giants book, and I've told the story about my son Tyler when he was in, I think, 5th grade, and he went on a field trip to Washington, D.C., and he started describing the obelisk as being a giant phallus and explaining the Illuminati layout. I was really proud of him. Needless to say, I had a PTA or a parent-teacher conference, and I said, Tyler, the things that God shares with you, don't share with others until he tells you they're ready to hear it. The best bit of advice I can tell you is this. Don't go just out saying, you know what? Do you know the aliens are coming? You know the giants are coming to come and eat you? Wait until someone says, I don't understand what's going on with the cannibalism. Ask God to give you an opening. Because again, men's hearts will fail them for fear for looking after those things coming upon the earth. Again, this is the weekend edition of the QCast. God bless you, and keep your eyes open, keep your heart open. And when you hear stuff like this, again, those of you who are believers, then take it to the Lord in prayer, but don't dismiss it. I just want to look really quickly here at how many footnotes. I mean, there are so many footnotes in this. Let me see. In the Aliens and Fallen Angels book, one last time, Offspring of the Gods, I think there are in excess of 600 footnotes in here. Maybe even, and ladies and gentlemen, I've lost track, at least 640 footnotes, okay? 640 footnotes. One of the most striking quotes was Whitley Strieber. I've interviewed Whitley. He's interviewed me years ago. But when he talked about the alien phenomenon, he said, and I'm paraphrasing, I quote him in context, but he said, I couldn't believe what was happening to me. I didn't want to believe what was happening to me. But instead of aliens, it was like a demonic, it was like an evil force. Almost, I think you used the word from the Dark Ages or the Middle Ages, and I don't mean to misquote him, but all I'm saying is this. You've got to start to realize that the things you think you see are not what's real. That's what the vomit brokers, that's what the political piranhas in the Potomac of self-indulgence want you to see. They're controlling their narrative. If you listen to the mainstream media, and since they're on a warpath against us, we give it right back to them. Hey, we at least provide documentation. There are probably, I don't know how many citizen journalists on the internet. There are people that have done their homework. We do our homework, and then we get people that basically, close both eyes, start singing, close both eyes, and put their fingers in their ears and go, no, 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 I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. So if you're not one of those people, then I'd encourage you to get some of these books that I'm talking to you about, because they really will help you to deal with what's coming. And if you can't handle life now, trust me, it's only going to get harder. And the idea is to put your life in the hands of someone who created, who's bigger than life. Not just someone who can create, add A and B and come up with C and claim, gee, I'm God. And you simply looked to him and said, you didn't create A, you didn't create B. All you did was combine them. Please don't be deceived by the greatest deception in history, which will have economic roots, which will have Vatican roots and control, which other religions will come on and claim, hey, this is the jinn returning. This is the returning of the ancient gods with all their promises. Don't end up like that Twilight Zone episode where to serve mankind, when the aliens come to take the earthlings away, to serve mankind was basically a recipe book for humans. You'll either have a recipe book for victory or a recipe book for disaster. That's why you get to taste and see either that the Lord is good, the living God, or you get the alternative. And trust me, more will choose the alternative than tasting. But if you're one of those people that really is looking for the truth and you're looking for resources, then I suggest you consider what I've said today and getting the book, Aliens and Fallen Angels, The Sexual Corruption of the Human Race. I mean, you can't get away from sex. I mean, now, seriously, you forget clothes. They'll just body paint a thermal paint on you. You'll never be cold again. You can be, whatever. And ultimately, Adam and Eve stood naked before God, and this generation does too, as they flaunt all the barriers and all the, if you will, decency, and with the flaunting of their bodies, the same entities that saw that the daughters of earth were fair, it's open season on them, ladies and gentlemen. It's open season. Incubus and succubus are the order of the day. If you know what those are, look them up. Thank you so much. We'll have the next QCast on Monday, Tuesday, and I'm finishing up, by the way, we're just we're in post-production on True Legends, the series, the third DVD, which is called There Were Giants. You'll be mind-blown by the amount of eyewitness testimony, of the evidence you simply can't deny. And, well, again, the search for Atlantis is on. We're going to show you just how it all plays out. And that's not how it played out, but how it all plays out. You'll be able to read tomorrow's headlines today. So, have a great weekend. God bless you. And keep your eyes open. And throw your iPhones away if you're trying to walk across the street or in the wilderness, and begin to look up in the sky and notice that even the chemtrails are becoming more prolific and the colors are being more diverse, meaning they're changing the formulas. Every way they want to kill you, but by the grace of God, you'll stay alive. Bye-bye.